Here in 1 Samuel chapter 16 verse 23, we encounter music being used for therapeutic purposes. Saul is tormented by an evil spirit. David plays his lyre. The evil spirit leaves and Saul feels better. Now, it would be easy simply to pluck this instance of music out of its context and talk solely about the healing nature of music as exhibited here in 1 Samuel. But actually, the context in which this early form of music therapy occurs is absolutely fascinating, because in it we view one of the key foundational truths of our faith, the providence of God. Why not go and read all of 1 Samuel 16? Because if you do, you'll see that it begins with David being anointed by the prophet Samuel, following the Lord's instruction that David has been chosen to be Israel's king. But on the ground at least, Saul is still very much the governing, ruling king of Israel. So how is this young, musical, poetry-loving shepherd boy, the least among his brothers, going to end up as king? Well, in the providence of God, it is then that an evil spirit is sent to torment Saul. And in God's providence, the music of the lyre is what Saul's attendants, on seeing such torment, suggest as being the required remedy. And again, in God's providence, David's musicianship on the lyre happens to be known of by one of Saul's servants, and in such a way that this servant thinks David might just be the man to relieve Saul of his torment, and so recommends him. Can you imagine for a moment how Jesse, David's father, might have felt when the king sends for his son, who has just been anointed by Samuel? Has Saul caught wind of the anointing? Is he going to kill David? Thankfully, that is not Saul's intention, at least not at this point. Rather, in God's providence, Saul likes David and desires him to remain in court in his service as an armor-bearer. And in God's providence, the music of the lyre that David plays does have the evil spirit ejecting properties that were desired in the first place. Secondly, though, this passage also demonstrates the pleasure of music. The reformer John Calvin wrote, "Now, among the other things which are proper for recreating man and giving him pleasure, music is either the first or one of the principal. And it is necessary for us to think that it is a gift of God deputed for that use." Nice, huh? And clearly the music here in 1 Samuel is not simply evil spirit ejecting, but pleasurable as well. Indeed, we learn a couple of chapters later that it was usual for David to be playing his lyre in Saul's house. And this isn't the only such scriptural example we have of music's pleasurable, even therapeutic properties. In 2 Kings chapter 3, the prophet Elisha uses music to calm his own spirits, which were in a bit of a tumult. These passages should certainly be of great encouragement to Christians today who are working in or wanting to work in music therapy. But returning to our verse today, in the early 1700s, Bible commentator Matthew Henry wrote the following about them. "Music has a natural tendency to compose and exhilarate the mind when it is disturbed and saddened. On some it has a greater influence and effect than on others, and probably Saul was one of those. Not that it charmed the evil spirit, but it made his spirit sedate and allayed those tumults of the animal spirit by which the devil had advantage against him. The beams of the sun cannot be cut with a sword, quenched with water, or blown out with wind, but by closing the window shutters, they may be kept out of the chamber. Music cannot work upon the devil, but it may shut up the passages by which he has access to the mind." Henry also writes, "It is a pity that music, which may be so serviceable to the good temper of the mind, should ever be abused by any to the support of vanity and luxury, and made an occasion of drawing the heart away from God. Music is clearly a wonderful gift of God, given to us, in part for our pleasure and for the good temper of the mind. So let us follow Matthew Henry's exhortation and use music for such purposes, mindful of it coming from God as a gift, and so letting it draw our hearts back to Him, the giver, the one in whom is ultimate pleasure and full healing."